right, still watching Africa's finest breakfast show, Newday on People's Television. My name still remains Anthony Momodu. We're done with talking cancer and how to curb cancer in Nigeria. Right now, we've got in the live studios Dr. Tafikat Ali, who is a program manager at the Institute of Human Biology of Nigeria, right here in the Federal Capital Territory, and we're focusing on curbing epidemics. In 2017, we had different epidemics hit Nigeria, and thousands of Nigerians did lose their lives before the vaccines actually came into the country. And this year in 2018, we're looking at how we can prevent these. And we decided to bring one of the foremost health organizations in Nigeria that have been pushing forward in terms of combating epidemics in the country, talking about the Institute of Human Biology right here in the Federal Capital. Good morning, nice to have you join us.
Good morning, thank you for having me.
All right, first of all, we'd like just a little bit about how well IHVN has done in terms of epidemics in Nigeria and other health activities.
The Institute of Human Virology Nigeria is a local non-governmental organization that was established 14 years ago in 2004. And the establishment was in response to the HIV epidemic. So IHVN came in to set up infrastructure to be able to care for people living with HIV and AIDS. But since then, there has been expansion to other infectious epidemics. So tuberculosis has been on the front burner of IHVN's social network. Also malaria, and we also support non-communicable diseases like cancers, in different areas. So in the last 14 years, IHVN has been responding to epidemics in Nigeria.
Okay, we know that because of the success rate of IHVN, they've got lots of foreign and global sponsors helping them out. Can you take us through the most recent success story, and also looking at NCDC partnering with IHVN? How important or strategic is that partnership?
IHVN is sponsored largely through donor funds. One of our largest funders is the USG through the CDC PEPFAR grants. We also have funds from the Global Fund to fight tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV. And we have funding for also capacity building to build the capacity of healthcare workers. So in terms of responding to epidemics and supporting the government agencies such as the NCDC in Nigeria, we've come a long way. Going back in history, as of 2006, when there was a bird flu outbreak, the Institute of Human Virology was at the forefront of that control program. An avian influenza center, laboratory center, was set up in Asokoro Hospital, and the first case, fatality case that was recorded of the avian influenza was made in that lab through the support of IHVN. And more recently, from around 2011, Nigeria has been partnering with the NCDC to set up its laboratory, because you'll agree with me that the backbone of any response to any infectious disease or epidemic is laboratory support. You need to be able to diagnose accurately and promptly. So this is why IHVN has been partnering with the NCDC through the support of the US CDC. So there have been grants in the recent times to help the NCDC set up its own reference laboratory, which is a mega laboratory that is equipped with a lot of high-tech specialized equipment to be able to diagnose infectious diseases. Currently now, the installment of equipment is ongoing at that laboratory. There is equipment maintenance, there is also capacity building for healthcare workers. So people are being trained on how to use the equipment. We have tests to respond to infectious diseases and even emerging infectious diseases. So for instance, we're talking about the recent outbreak of Lassa fever. Right now in Nigeria, there is only one center in the whole country where that is done. That is in Edo State, Irua. So samples and individuals have to travel hundreds of kilometers to get to Edo State.
Is IHVN involved in that?
No, so we're not directly involved in Irua, but the Gadua lab, owned by the National Center for Disease Control, is coming up, and it's going to have the capacity to be able to do such tests. Specialized tests, the PCR test, Right now, the IAGN has a specialized lab in Asokoro District Hospital, where viral load is done. PCR, that's polymerase chain reaction, which is a test that actually looks into the core of the infection to determine what the disease is, which is what is happening with Lassa fever. So we're moving this Asokoro lab to the NCDC lab in Abuja here. And from there, we're going to set up other equipment and maintenance of other equipment to be able to respond quickly to infectious diseases.
Okay.
Now, it says something, I think this is more or less out of curiosity. You talked about bird flu that we had the outbreak in 2006. So I don't know, is it that there are certain equipments that you use to try to diagnose and give the proper results and all that? And if there are, after you do that, for instance, because for me, I call such things seasonal diseases. Of course, that could be a wrong term and all. But then what happens to these equipments? Because I want to believe that probably use these equipments for just those particular outbreaks. And then after that, what happens? Do you have a way of improvising to use them again, or just throw them out or keep them away just in case of next time? Because 2006 to this time, it's been a long time. So what happens in such a case?
Absolutely, that is right. In diagnosing infections, you need to know exactly what kind of tests to do to diagnose accurately. So depending on the kind of agent that causes the infection. So when you're talking about the bird flu, the Lassa fever, a lot of them are viral infections. And viral infections are, viral diseases are caused by, as the name implies, viruses, which you need specialized equipment for. So oftentimes you need to be able to diagnose looking at the genetic material of the infection. So you need specialized equipment, genomic sequencing. So these are some of the things that, so for the bird flu that happened thereon, about 2006, there was some provision of equipment to be able to tackle that. So what is happening now is we're building upon that.
Okay.
We're having more equipment coming to country to be able to build the capacity of such laboratories to do more specialized tests so that we can actually go down into the nitty-gritty, pick the infection, diagnose, and then from there you can put on interventions to be able to curb further spread.
Let's look at the Lassa fever in Ebonyi State. What is the current status now?
So the cases reported in Ebonyi State were reported amongst healthcare workers.
Okay, amongst healthcare workers.
Okay. In Ebonyi State. So there was some personnel, healthcare providers who had operated. One was a surgeon who had operated on a patient. Another was also a community health specialist who was also had contact with a patient. But unfortunately, they got infected and they died. Wow. While it is a responsibility, every healthcare provider has the duty to attend to their patients, to provide adequate care to patient. But infection control and precaution is also necessary so that while we're taking care of patients, we're also preserving our own lives. So it was an unfortunate incident.
So is it that they breached that precaution?
Yes, infection control. Perhaps there wasn't adequate infection control. Again, Lassa fever, because of the insidious nature of onset of the infection, it comes on like the usual malaria symptoms. You have headache, fever, you have sore throat. So I may think, oh, is it the flu? Is it malaria? So because of that, the nature of the symptoms, it's easy for everyone to assume it's a common ailment. So sometimes we let down our guards. So I think the lesson from that is universal precaution. Irrespective of who we are meeting, who we are treating, we should always put on adequate protective measures. So in the healthcare setting, as it happened in Ebonyi State, personal protective equipment, our gloves, and so many other things needed to be put in place.
Okay, since the symptoms are so similar to malaria, what is that particular symptom in Lassa fever that I can actually pick out and say, oh, this is Lassa fever, not malaria?
Okay, so as I said, it starts insidiously, but by the time you see progression, and again, you may have started antimalarial, sometimes antibiotics, thinking it's some sore throat or respiratory tract. But by the time some of the major symptoms come on, vomiting, bloody, diarrhea, because it's a viral hemorrhagic fever. It means it causes hemorrhaging, meaning bleeding. So by the time you start saying bleeding, sometimes the patient becomes, some central nervous involvement. They may fall into confusion, disorientation. So by the time we start saying, they may not totally lose their memory, but they may be confused and disoriented. Okay. So by the time we start seeing this further major symptoms, then the index of suspicion is raised.
Yes, okay.
And then we start thinking of going further to investigate further.
All right. IHV has been on for 14 years, you said. What has been the key thing that's kept them going in terms of the fact that we know that you receive international funds, global funds? What has been the trick or the magic word, knowing that it's a local organization, and we know that in Nigeria it's not always very easy sustaining businesses, especially in the health sector, an organization like that. What stands you head above other health institutions here?
Thank you. I'll say quality of service.
Okay.
It's a local organization, it's non-governmental, so the focus is not profit, but service to humanity. And the management holds this dearly. It's at the core of the mission of IHVN. Okay. So there is a lot of investment in recruiting and training personnel, in providing adequate and quality service to healthcare, to the healthcare, into the healthcare system, training capacity, you know, and ensuring that funds gotten from donors are judiciously used. Okay. You know, so of course there is always accountability. So we get funds, and we have figures to show that this is where the fund has gotten to. This is what has been used for, and I think that's the core of our.
Okay, it is okay. Still looking at the health sector in terms of equipment, we know that has been one of the major problems. How has it been for IHV and getting the right kind of equipment, and also getting people who can truly man this equipment, especially looking at your lab in Zaria? Yes. How strategic is that lab in Zaria?
The Zaria lab is a biosafety level 3 laboratory, which is the first in Africa and the second in West Africa.
What do you mean by level 3?
So it's talking about the level of infection control. The system in the laboratory is such that infection is curtailed in such a way that air doesn't just pass out. There's special mechanisms that take out used air, infected air, and bring in clean air. So it's tell you to the level of infection. So it's one of its kind in West Africa. And that we've got a lot of support from our donors, the USG, the Global Fund. So the Zaria Lab is a place where drug-resistant TB, tuberculosis, is diagnosed. It's the first place in Africa, in Nigeria, and one of the first in West Africa where we have diagnosis of drug-resistant TB. So I think the support we have had from our funders, and we've also had a lot of personnel being trained within and outside the country. We have a biosafety engineer. South is an internationally certified biosafety engineer. Is the only one I know of in Nigeria. Wow. And he's been involved in training other engineers across the country in partnership with the Ministry of Health. So we have other engineers from the state and state ministries who are being trained in biosafety. So we have personnel, we have funding to be able to procure and maintain. Again, maintenance is very important. We've also been very lucky. Our funders have, been supporting us all through. They bring in technical expertise, they train our personnel, and I think that has been a great success story.
Okay.
You mentioned something about Edo, Edo being the only center right now that literally everyone has to troop to, for diagnosis and all that. But isn't there, is it not possible for them to probably overwhelmed, and then probably misdiagnosis can come and all that? Because, I don't know the capacity, but it sounds as if it's going to be really, really, really tedious for them.
That's an absolute fact. They're overwhelmed, and that is why sometimes you send samples. There is a story of a colleague who came in contact with a patient, and a sample of the patient was sent to Irua, and the result wasn't out on time because they're overwhelmed. There's so much sample going there. So, of course, we're lucky we have that center, but I think that's a call on the government to see that we expand, the services, which is why we're partnering with the NCDC to ensure that we can have that facility available here. So we'd like to see going forward, perhaps one facility in every geopolitical zone of Nigeria, so that in this zone, we know that this is a reference lab, a national reference lab where this test can be done. That will be very...
You're going to be partnering with the government agency. We know in Nigeria there's so much bureaucracy. And one thing that I think I took out from IHV and dealing with them was the first time we wrote a letter seeking for them to help us with medical expertise to talk on health issues. the response was mighty fast. Got a response on like a typical Nigerian organization that it's going to take weeks to get a reply, and here you are. What's the guarantee that dealing with a government agency is not going to slow your professionalism? How do you intend to tackle that part?
Collaboration, ensuring that the right stakeholders are engaged. So that is why we take it from all levels, engagements at all levels, at the local, the state, and even the national level.
Okay.
So there are bureaucracies, but at the same time, we've got good working relationship with the Federal Ministry of Health, with a lot of government agencies and MDEs. So we have contacts, we have activities that are lined up that ensure that we meet the right persons at the right time. Sometimes we experience a bit of delay, no doubt, but I think over time, in the last couple of years, we've been able to overcome that hurdle. We've had tremendous improvement. I'll say the NCDC, the current, I think Director General.
The DG, yes, the
yes,
Director
Dr.
General.
Chikwe.
Okay.
It's been fantastic working with him. The response, he's got a good team on ground. So partnering with NCDC under the current leadership has been a very fruitful one. We've got good response from the team, and we hope to continue building on such relationships to get to the goal.
All right, still looking at epidemics in Nigeria, with all that occurred last year, we had the Lassa fever, we had meningitis, and other epidemics. What's the preparation for 2018? Just to be sure that things are well managed, because the Ebola incident, schools had to be shut down for, I think, a week or so. On the part of IHVN, what is the plan to, be prepared?
Okay. You'll agree with me again that information is key. When people have information, know what to do, then it helps in curtailing a lot of the spread. So we're partnering with NCDC again in information sharing. There are IEC materials, information, education, communication materials, in form of handbills, posters, leaflets, pamphlets. We're distributing this across the nation. We have regional offices, we have state offices across Nigeria. So this information, we're part of the technical communication working group with NCDC, with other stakeholders. So we sit together to develop information communication plans, and this is disseminated. So that's an aspect of information, passing information to the people. Then also capacity building of healthcare providers. Again, the Ebonyi experience, we're seeing a lot of cases in the healthcare system, but there are also cases in the community. So promoting awareness. So we're also doing a lot in awareness creation. We have information, the external communication relations department, which is partnering with a lot of government agencies, private organizations. We have public-private partnership where we disseminate a lot of information. And we've also mentioned capacity building for our own staff, for the health providers at the facility level, and even with MDs and government agencies. We're doing a lot of capacity building in being able to adequately diagnose diseases and other healthcare providers in promptly responding, making available, the necessary drugs and other treatment options.
All right. I just want to take a look at the management team. What's the makeup of the management team? Can you take us to the quality you have in your management team? Because I'm really curious to know what gives you guys that strong, formation. What's the management team like? What's the capacity? So that probably we can, the government and other health sector stakeholders could borrow a lead from IHV and being the leading, organization in terms of healthcare.
It's a non-governmental organization, so we have a board, and the board has a lot of well-seasoned politicians, healthcare providers, lawyers on its team. But in terms of the management structure, at the head is Dr. Patrick Dakum. He's executive. He's a chief executive officer of the Institute of Human Virology. He's a seasoned public health physician. So we have major areas, thematic areas, I would say. We have the programs, we have the research. Under the research arm, we have Professor Alashilia Bimiku, who is a scientist of international repute. Right now, IHVN has the International Research Center of Excellence, which is one of the first of its kind in West Africa. That started off in 2015.
Okay.
It is where we're training scientists on research. So heading that is Professor Alashila Bimiku.
Okay.
We also have Professor Adebomowo, also in the research arm. Then on the administrative hand, we have the Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Mensah.
Okay. Is he Nigerian?
Mr. Mensah is a Nigerian.
Not Ghanaian?
He's a Nigerian, a full Nigerian.
Because it looks like the names are Kenya from different parts of the country.
They're all Nigerians.
Okay.
They're all Nigerians. So Mr. Mensah is a Nigerian. He heads the operations. So under the operations, you have the administrative structures.
Okay.
Under Dr. Dakum, the programs. So you have the clinicals, and you have all the thematic areas. And each thematic area has a head. So we have the head of the clinical unit. We have the community group.
Okay.
We have the head of that group. And under each group, individuals heading each of this group.
Subheads,
Yes, the subheads are individuals who have had international exposure, who have worked
Sounds
with
very organized.
big governmental organizations, international organizations. So we have, I'll say that's for me as a staff for IHVN, that is something I have gained.
I think you guys are not being fair. They're like Barcelona, they take all the best players in the world and put in their team. So tell me why you shouldn't succeed.
Exactly.
So because we have a goal, the goal is quality.
Okay.
You know, so and that is what we aim at. So that is why we have the best of hands to carry forth our mission.
All right, just finally, what would be your advice to people watching in terms of them being safety conscious against epidemics coming up in 2018? The likely things they should look out for and stay away from.
Okay, so basically, universal precaution is the word.
Okay.
You don't know at what angle an infection will come hit you from. So always be prepared. And what we're talking about universal precaution, personal hygiene, environmental hygiene. In personal hygiene, so if we take a cursory look back at the Ebola response, why were we so successful as a country? We had a high sense of awareness. Everyone was washing their hands. We all had our hand sanitizers. We had our improvised buckets. I'd like to see that.
No more shaking hands.
I'd like to see that repeated. What we have at public places, at schools, and the homes, you have your water. If you don't have a running tap, have a basin of water, soap,
Even
wash
in the
your
banks,
hands.
you saw it in the banks.
You know, let's have the high sense of awareness that, look, infections are everywhere. We just need to be prepared and keep our environments clean, very clean. Ensure that, you know, waste disposal is well done. Keep things covered. The Lassa fever is actually from what we eat and contacts from. So ensure that we store our food properly. Ensure that even the children, let them be aware that you go out to play, you come in, the first thing you should do is wash your hands. For healthcare workers, before you see a patient, you wash your hands. After seeing a patient, you wash your hands. That reduces the risk of transmission. So I'll say universal precaution. Let's always think of infection control and precaution. And I think we'll be home and dry.
All right, indeed, we're home and dry for today. And Dr. Tafikat Ali from IHVN, she's a program manager, taking us through a wonderful time. Now we know why they're thick. That's just like Barcelona, like I'll say again, taking all the best hands, and we have to probe them. They have to share. All right, thank you very much for joining us on Africa's Finest Breakfast Show. And we hope in the coming days, I hope you're promising everyone here that we're going to have more of your quality hands come talk to us so that we can be better, you know, informed health-wise. That's a promise.
That's a promise.
Okay, that's a promise.
We're always available for the public.
All right, so we want to say a big thank you to some of the subheads like Hambadon mentioned. We had Dr. Sam Peters, who was very instrumental in helping us move this deal through. We have Mr. Modi also from the media and communication angle for helping us also help us get one of the leading organizations in healthcare in Nigeria, talking about IHVN. Say thank you very much, and we'll be going for a quick break. Once we come back, we'll be wrapping up Africa's Finest Breakfast Show.